Hello, guys, Mac here, and today I'm going to talk about the pistols and how that Rockstar could balance them in GTA Online. Now, this is an episode in my series called How to Balance GTA 5, and what we're going to be talking about in this video is the pistols. Now, if you want to check out last episode, which talks about how time to kill works and how damage per second works, and also how the weapons in GTA Online are balanced, then I'll leave a link in the description to that video. Get right into it with the pistols. Now, the pistols are sort of a weird area for GTA Online, because in a lot of games, pistols are mainly your secondaries, right? And so you don't want them to be as powerful as, your primary weapons, like your assault rifles and stuff. But at the same time, in GTA, you don't really need that because you have the weapon wheel, right? So you can, hold unlimited weapons. There's not really a reason to have a secondary. So there's not really a reason to actually use some of the pistols in this game. So my main focus was to give each pistol a niche. Although it's kind of hard to actually, make pistols completely usable as long as, the weapons are, as long as you have, like, the weapon wheel and stuff. Because, like I said, there's not really a reason to have a secondary because of the weapon wheel. Now, this episode will sort of be split up into two different sections. You have the standard pistols, and then you have what I'm going to be calling the hand cannon pistols. Those would be the more, high damaged pistols. And just sort of splitting those two up. And then also keep in mind the AP pistol won't be in this episode, even though it is a pistol technically. I'm going to be putting that in the SMG, video, because that will also cover the micro SMG and the machine pistol. So I thought it would be better and more fitting to put the AP pistol in there. First off is the pistol. Now the pistol, I sort of wanted to make it sort of this standard pistol, sort of your jack of all trades pistol. And the current DPS of this weapon is 78. And what I'm going to be doing is actually making the weapon have a damage of 32, and while that does seem like quite a bit for a pistol, the range is really where this weapon doesn't have a good strength, and that is, the range is from 20 to 60 meters. Now, sure, the 20 meters is where the first, damage starts to drop off, up to 60 meters, and the thing is with that is, you're not going to be wanting to use most pistols at long range. There are a few that are a little bit better at range, but for the most part, you're not going to be wanting to use these pistols at long range. That's just not what they're built for. And that's sort of how the weapon can have a high damage. It can have a pretty high time to kill. But the problem is that the range on the pistols, for the most part, are quite bad. So this would actually bring the weapon to have a new DPS of 96. And then we're also going to move on to the combat pistol, which has a current DPS of 81. Pretty much that's just because it has like one extra damage than the regular pistol, and pretty much the combat pistol is pretty much the exact same as the regular pistol with a few minor tweaks to it. But we're going to be making the damage actually 28, which is a little bit lower than, the regular pistol, but the range is pretty much overall better, with 25 as your start off damage drop off to 75 is where the weapon would stop, just not hit your target. And I made it that because I feel like something like a combat pistol would be good at long range. Sure, it's not the best pistol at long range, but it is something if you want maybe a little bit lower damage, but you want a good range. So I would say you're not super up close and you're not really confident at a range with your weapon, then this combat pistol is what you want. And this would actually bring the weapon to have a new DPS of 84. Not really that big of a change, just because the damage didn't change too much. But we're just going to be making it a better weapon for a longer range. Next is the SNS Pistol, which has a current DPS of 84. And the new, stats on this weapon that I've come up with would be a damage of 30 with a range of 15 to 45. What really, sets this weapon apart is the fire rate. And that would be an increased fire rate to 0.320. And what that means is that, a lot of pistols and stuff, like, say, the combat pistol, which, the rate of fire on that weapon would still be the same, but that's a 0.370 time between shots. So this would be pretty much your fast pistol, fast firing pistol, aside from something like the AP pistol or something. But if you want a, good, reliable, close range, and a good fire rate on your pistol, the SNS pistol is for you. Of course, you do have the trade-off of a lower magazine count, so that is sort of the trade-off and a bad range. But if you want one that's just good up close, then I feel like this weapon is the one for you. And that also has a new DPS of 120, so it has a pretty good, damage per second, and just the range and the magazine size is the trade-off to that high DPS. Next is the heavy pistol, which I sort of wanted to have a high damage, but sort of be in the in-between of the hand cannons and the, regular pistols. So it's just sort of an in-between, and the DPS on the heavy pistol is 120, and what we're going to be doing is actually changing the damage to 46, which is quite high, but pretty much the range would be 25 to 60 meters. So pretty much the same as, say, the combat pistol and pistol, in that area of range. And the magazine size will be 8 instead of the, 18 that it has with, 16 as extended mag. And I never understood why Rockstar decided to make the heavy pistol have an 18 round magazine. That just didn't really make much sense to me. Somehow, they thought, well, not only is that kind of unrealistic to the real-life M1911 to have an 18 round magazine with 32 extended mag, I just felt like it wasn't that good of an idea. So I'm going to be, having it with a mag size of 8 with 16 in the extended mags, which would make the weapon have a new damage per second of 1.38. One thing that they could also maybe do is mess around with the accuracy. I didn't really want to do too much with the accuracy on pistols because I feel like they should be reliable. Even if they're not the best weapons in the game, they should at least be reliable. So that's why the accuracy, I didn't want to mess around with too much. And you're going to see that later in the videos, later in the series. We're going to be seeing a lot of spread changes to weapons. But those are, fully automatic weapons that you're going to be wanting to use, at those longer ranges. So that's why I didn't really want to change the spreads on these weapons too much. Very few of the weapons actually have spread changes. So the new DPS on the heavy pistol is 138. Moving on is the vintage pistol. Now, I didn't really know what the vintage pistol, what niche it could have. Really, honestly, I'm not sure on what they could do with it. It sort of just feels like this kind of, gimmick weapon. It doesn't really feel like anything that needs to have good stats, so I felt like just sort of copy the stats from another weapon. I honestly couldn't, come up with anything that the vintage pistol could do that other weapons couldn't, because it's just not that great, and I just didn't know, I just couldn't come up with anything good for the vintage pistol, so I guess just make it the same as another pistol. Next is the pistol 50 cal, which is moving into the hand cannon territory, which the pistol 50 cal is sort of your, I guess, in between, it's on your, faster fire rate end of, the other two weapons that you'll see in this category, or this subcategory of pistols. So the current DPS on the pistol 50 cal is 102. So what I'm going to be doing is making the damage to 70 instead of the 51 that it currently had. And the range is from 40 to 100 meters. What you're going to be seeing with these, high caliber pistols is that they'll have high damage, but, lower fire rates than the other pistols, and their range will be generally longer, just because, they do more damage. I want them to be better at ranges, but the huge trade-off is the accuracy and the fact that, the weapon just fires quite slow. But the pistol 50 cal, while it isn't as high damage as some of the other pistols, like the heavy revolver and the marksman pistol, it wouldn't be that, powerful. But it would just be sort of a faster fire rate, maybe close range type of weapon, which I really felt would make this weapon a little bit more unique. Next is the heavy revolver, which is one of the more popular pistols in the game, at least from what I've seen. And the heavy revolver doesn't really have a damage per second because the fire rate, the time between shots is longer than a second. So I didn't put a damage per second in here because the damage per second would essentially be the damage, which right now is 160. So there's not really a damage per second because it takes, I think 2.5, time between shots. So 2.5 seconds, you're not going to be shooting. So that sort of means that you're going to do 160 damage for 1 second. And that would be your DPS right there. But then you're going to have to wait. So it's not really a damage per second because you're not firing each and every second. So the heavy revolver would have a new damage of 180. Pretty much very similar to what it currently had. But the range would be 50 to 175 meters. Now, while that first number may not sound too good, that 175 meters is very, very powerful for this weapon. And the currently, the heavy revolver, and I never actually mentioned this in Gun Guide, was actually, it didn't have a range drop-off. I never actually knew that whenever I, made that video of Gun Guide. I just kind of overlooked that. but it actually doesn't have a damage drop-off, much like the Pistol 50 cal. And I felt like something like a Revolver would actually be pretty good as sort of a pocket sniper, or if you want like a, it wouldn't be as effective as a sniper, but it would be something that you can use at longer ranges for the pistol category. So I felt like that would, make the weapon very good, especially because it has a slow fire rate. I felt like that would be very, very nice. And same with the marksman pistol, it doesn't have a, actual good damage per second because the weapon, it fires slower than a second. So the time between shots is slower than a second, so it doesn't really have a damage per second. But the damage would be 260, and the range would be from 50 to 120, sort of in between the Pistol 50 cal and the heavy revolver. And what I sort of want with the marksman pistol is sort of a high risk, high reward type weapon. And what this means is that it is the most powerful pistol in the game, and one of the most powerful weapons in the entire game. But it's not super viable if you miss that first shot because of the long reload time for it. So that's sort of what I wanted to do with this weapon. Sort of make it, less powerful if you miss your shots, but if if you're on point, you can, maximize that damage, and it has a decent range, so the damage doesn't fall off too long at ranges, so that is what I wanted to do with the marksman pistol. But anyways, that's all the pistols for this video. Like I said, the AP pistol will be in the next episode, which the next episode will be covering the MGs, the SMGs. So that's what we're going to be doing in that video. And that video will actually be split up into 2 episodes. That's why I wanted to put the AP pistol in there, because we're gonna have the machine pistols, and then also the standard SMGs and stuff like that. So tune in for that video once that comes out. Also, if you want to check out all the episodes in this series, then there will be links in the description for how to balance GTA 5. Also, if you want to check out my previous series, which was GTA 5 Gun Guide, which talked about all the weapons in GTA 5, there will be links in the description to a playlist for that as well. If you want to know more stats on the pistols in this game, there will be links in the description. Also, if you want to go check out some stats and where I got this information on the stats in GTA Online, there will be links in the description as well. So just check the description and you'll see a lot of information. But let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. Would you balance out these weapons, the way I did? Would you make any changes to what I made? Let me know that in the comments. Hope you enjoy. Feedback's always appreciated. I'll see you guys in the next video.